I grew up in a weathered white two-story house on Maple Street in Cleveland. Its navy shutters were chipped and peeling, the porch swing groaned at the slightest breeze, and yet, to me, it was the center of the universe. Mornings smelled of coffee drifting from the kitchen, and the wooden floors creaked like they had their own memory. My name is Lena, and that house taught me early that walls could guard secrets just as fiercely as they guarded people. When my father died, silence filled the house with a weight heavier than I thought silence could carry. It dimmed the light trying to slip through the curtains and pressed on us until even breathing felt different. My mother, Ruth, hardened overnight into someone made of steel, though I quickly learned that steel could still crack. I was only a teenager, but grief forced me to grow fast. I learned discipline, responsibility, and control, because without them, I would have drowned. Money became my anchor. Every dollar I earned gave me a sense of safety, a railing to cling to when everything else felt uncertain. Before I even finished high school, I worked café shifts, stocked retail shelves, scrubbed offices. Later, I waitressed late into the night, kept books during the day, picked up any job that offered a paycheck. I didn't complain, I had a plan. By 30, I had saved $920,000. That number wasn't just money. It was my shield. It was skipped vacations, modest meals, and years of saying not this time to friends who invited me on trips. Every sacrifice was a brick in the foundation of the life I was building. My savings sat split between a high-yield account and short-term treasury bills. Not glamorous, but safe. One day, I told myself, it would buy me a home of my own, tall windows for sunlight, a small studio to paint in, a garden for herbs. That dream kept me moving. The only person outside my family who knew about my savings was Frank Doyle, my grandfather's closest friend. A retired police officer, Frank still carried himself like he was on patrol, sharp eyes, steady hands. When Grandpa died, Frank kept checking in. "Your grandpa trusted your good sense, Lena," he'd say, leaning against our porch rail. So do I. Frank wasn't a man who handed out praise, so when he did, it stuck. For a while, life found its rhythm again. My mother and I both worked, both carried on. The house was quieter, but steady. Then one spring evening, she walked into the living room wearing a smile too bright to be hers. She said she'd met someone. His name was Victor. I'll never forget his arrival. He pulled up in a polished dark sedan, stepped out in a sharp suit, and carried the kind of cologne that smelled cold, metallic. He shook my hand with a smile that didn't meet me, it measured me. My gut tightened, but I told myself not to judge. People deserve chances. That night over dinner, Mom laughed at his jokes with a lightness I hadn't seen in years. She leaned toward him, as if she were leaning into a promise. Part of me wanted to be glad for her. She deserved happiness after so many years of widowhood. But another part of me, the cautious part, kept whispering warnings. Victor began visiting often. He filled the house with his confidence, the kind that crowds every corner. His questions about my job, my savings, my future were sharp, pointed. When I dodged them, he smiled like he already knew the answers. I wanted to tell Mom what I felt, but she dismissed me every time. "You worry too much, Lena. He's good for me. You'll see." She changed quickly under his influence, new clothes, styled hair, and talk of leaving Maple Street behind. "This house is old," she said one night. "We deserve better. A fresh start." She didn't realize her words cut deep. That house wasn't just wood and paint, it was my father's laughter, my grandfather's stories, my own nights spent planning the future. To her, it was a burden. To me, it was home. Looking back, the warning signs were obvious. The way Victor's eyes lingered on my laptop screen when I balanced accounts. The way Mom's questions about money grew more frequent. The hushed conversations in the kitchen when they thought I wasn't listening. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself family mattered too much for betrayal. I was wrong. 1 week later, Mom walked in with a ring on her finger and Victor at her side. She called him husband like the word was a trophy she'd been waiting to hold. My heart sank. No engagement, no pause, just a hasty wedding and a stranger claiming our lives. Victor wrapped his arm around her and laid a glossy flyer on the coffee table, a house listing. 4 bedrooms. 3 baths. A price scrawled in black ink, $910,000. Isn't it beautiful, Lena? Mom's voice trembled with excitement. I couldn't speak. My chest constricted as I excused myself, phone in hand. I opened my banking app, waiting for the screen that always brought me comfort. But when it loaded, my breath turned to ice. The balance was gone. The $920,000 I had spent half my life building was emptied with surgical precision in less than 2 days. The transfers were clean, practiced, cashier's checks, withdrawals staggered just enough to look deliberate. My vision blurred as the truth sank in. My mother hadn't borrowed from me. She had taken everything. Clutching my phone like evidence, I stumbled back into the living room. They were on the couch, Mom and Victor, laughing softly, glasses of wine in hand, as if I were the one intruding in my own house. Mom, I said, my voice trembling. What did you do? She set her glass down with the carefulness of someone handling crystal. Then she gave me that look, the one she always wore when I disappointed her, as though I'd spilled juice on her freshly scrubbed floor. You're my daughter, she said evenly, chin lifted. You need to pay me. The words struck like a slap. Pay you? I repeated. For what? For marrying a man you barely know? For stealing my savings? Her eyes narrowed. Don't be dramatic, Lena. You're young, you'll make more. I raised you. I fed you. You wouldn't have had the chance to save that money without me. This is for the family. Our family. Victor chuckled, swirling his wine like a villain rehearsing lines. Family helps family, he said smoothly. But something in me snapped. This wasn't about money anymore, it was betrayal dressed up as love, justified with the word daughter. I shook my head. No. You don't understand what you've done. Victor leaned back, smirk curling his lips. Don't make this a scene. You'll thank us when you see the house. But I knew there would be no thanks. No forgiveness. Not for this. That night, while they slept, I packed quietly, clothes, my sketchbooks, my passport, and one chipped blue mug I couldn't leave behind. I loaded my sedan and drove away. The house on Maple Street shrank in my rearview mirror, its windows black, the porch swing groaning in the night wind. I didn't look back again. At a roadside motel with a flickering neon sign, I tried to breathe. The room smelled of old smoke, the carpet worn, the curtains refusing to close. I sat on the bed staring at the digital clock, 10:03. My mother's voice echoed in my head, you're my daughter. You need to pay me. But it wasn't just mine she had taken, the $920,000 was never fully mine to spend. I had been entrusted with it. Frank Doyle, my grandfather's oldest friend, a retired officer, had asked me to safeguard the money while legal paperwork for a fund was finalized. He trusted me because I was steady, careful, responsible. We had signed an agreement. I had promised him it was safe. Now it was gone. At dawn, I called him. My voice was calm only because I forced it to be. Frank, I whispered, both hands gripping the phone to steady myself, it's gone. Mom and Victor took it. They're talking about a new house. Silence. Then his voice, low and controlled, stay where you are, Lena. Don't confront them again. I'll meet you soon. By noon, we sat across from each other at the precinct. The table between us held the agreement, my bank statements, and a photo of the glossy flyer Victor had waved in my face. Detective Maria Alvarez joined us, sharp eyes, steady presence, a yellow legal pad filling with her square, methodical handwriting. She asked questions, patient but relentless, names, dates, amounts. I gave her everything. When she asked if my mother knew the funds weren't mine, I hesitated. I don't know if she realized. But she knew they weren't hers. Frank's jaw tightened, his hands clenching and unclenching. He said nothing. That afternoon, we drove to Lakewood. The new development smelled of fresh paint and trimmed lawns. And there it was, a beige two-story with a red door, sold sign in the grass. On the porch, my mother and Victor posed like victors of their own little kingdom. The squad cars rolled up, lights spinning silently. Detective Alvarez's voice carried authority as she asked for proof of funds, documentation. Victor laughed. We're just buying a house. Nothing illegal about that. But then came the copies of the cashier's checks, my name, my account, and a letter claiming I had gifted the money. The signature was forged, its loops too wide, the slant too sharp. Alvarez's tone shifted. My mother's face went pale as she reached for Victor. He cursed, tried to shield her, even twitched for his pocket, but officers pinned him in seconds. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, heart hammering. Frank lingered just behind me, his long coat catching the wind. He said nothing, only watched as justice unfolded. When the squad cars finally pulled away, the neighborhood fell silent except for the hum of the breeze through half-built houses. The red front door swung ajar, left open in the chaos. Frank's voice was quiet but firm. This is why we have rules, Lena. To protect what matters. I swallowed hard, fighting the burn of tears. The house on Maple Street had never felt so far away. And though justice had begun to move, a hollow ache whispered that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. Sometimes Emily left me a note in her neat handwriting, "You're stronger than you think." Those little gestures meant more than I could ever explain. The court moved quickly to halt the sale of the house. Investigators traced the money my mother and Victor had funneled through cashier's checks and digital transfers. The trail was undeniable, and the charges stacked up: forgery, theft, fraud. The system ground forward with mechanical precision, like gears crushing everything caught in between. I sat in sterile courtrooms, pale walls pressing in, listening to lawyers argue in voices stripped of emotion, as if my life were just another stack of paperwork. But it wasn't paperwork to me. It was my savings, my trust, my very sense of security, shattered and laid bare. The bank returned part of what was stolen, but not all. Some money was gone forever, lost in fees, penalties, and gaps I couldn't even understand. Life, I realized, rarely balances like a ledger. I learned that the hard way. One afternoon, the prosecutor called. Her tone was brisk, professional. Words like restitution and forgery rolled off her tongue as if they were nothing more than lines in her day's vocabulary. But when I hung up, sitting at Emily's kitchen table, the tears came, years' worth of grief and release bursting out of me like a jammed door finally forced open. In time, I began to think about rebuilding. I knew I couldn't go back to Maple Street. That house wasn't a home anymore, it was a relic, a museum piece. You can look, remember, but never touch, never return. So I searched for something new. On Cleveland's west side, I found it, a small brick house listed for $265,000. Modest, sturdy, with a patch of grass in front and a sunlit living room. One small room called to me instantly. I knew it would be my studio. I paid for it with money I could prove was mine. When the keys were handed to me, the weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying slid off my shoulders. The first thing I did was paint the front door a deep green, the color of growth, of life beginning again. I built shelves for my sketchbooks, filling the walls with pieces of myself. Slowly, the quiet rooms began to echo not with loss, but with survival. One weekend, I took a train to Chicago. I needed distance, a different skyline. I wandered an art show, breathing in other people's visions, and in a small bookstore, I bought a collection by a British painter. One line stayed with me, every honest line drawn as a kind of prayer. I'm not religious, but honesty is prayer, that sounded like something I could live by. Now, when I look out over Lake Erie, I still think of Europe, trains crossing borders, maps spread wide. My grandfather and Frank had always dreamed of going. Maybe one day I will too. But my story is rooted here, in American soil, in neighborhoods that taught me both the weight of betrayal and the strength of resilience. Sometimes, I still pass Maple Street. The house stands there, weathered, shutters peeling, porch swing creaking in the wind. I never step onto the porch. I just pause at the sidewalk, whispering goodbye to the girl who once believed carefulness could shield her from heartbreak. Life breaks everyone, sooner or later. What matters is what you choose to keep afterward. Here is what I keep. The truth that money is not love. It can't protect you, but it reveals who will stand by you when it's gone. The memory of Detective Alvarez's steady hand, her quiet listening, her calm belief in the weight of truth. The image of Frank's weary eyes, tired yet trusting, carrying both disappointment and strength. Emily's kindness, the tea on the nightstand, the folded blanket, the silence that needed no explanation. And most of all, I keep my voice. The voice that once said, "No, you don't know what you did." Even trembling, even alone, it carried me through. Now, in my new house, I carry a single key on a plain metal ring. No ribbon, no charm, just steel, simple, sharp, shining like a small moon. Each time I turn it in the lock, I am reminded, this door opens for me, and me alone. That is enough. For now, for today. And in the small act of opening that door, I know, I am home.